Welcome, kindred spirits, to a place of positivity, passion, and purpose. Welcome to our video on logo of the BBC. We're thrilled to have you here. The logo of the BBC has been a brand identity for the corporation and its work since the years in a variety of designs. Until the introduction of a logo in 1958, the corporation had relied on its coat of arms for official documentation and correspondence, although this crest rarely appeared on screen. With the increased role of television for the BBC in the years, particularly after the foundation of ITV, the corporation used its logo to increase viewer familiarity and to standardise its image and content. The logo has since been redesigned a number of times, most recently in 2021 with the BBC blocks, a logo designed to work across media. From 1958, there have been 6 different BBC logos. The first logo of the network was used from 1958 to 1963, the second from 1963 to 1971, the third from 1971 to 1992. The fourth from 1988 to 1997, the fifth from 1997 to 2021, while the sixth and current logo was adopted in October 2021. Prepare yourself for an eye-opening discussion on before the logo in the upcoming portion of this video. Before the BBC introduced its logo itself, in the form of the slanted boxes, the BBC used a variety of different symbols with which to represent itself. In printed media and corporation correspondence, it used the BBC coat of arms, while on screen, it used a different logo type. Originally, it used a stylized BBC text on early equipment, not unlike the caption that accompanied the COW globe. This logo was rarely seen on screen, with captions containing the words BBC television service along with matching clock. In 1932, when the original reception room of the BBC Broadcasting House in London opened, a logo was laid in mosaic on the floor. This logo was merely a stylized entwining of 2 capital Bs, one facing either direction, linked by a Celsius in the center. This mosaic logo is still visible on the floor today, though the area no longer serves as the main reception room. With our foundation established, it's time to explore us and its relevance to our overarching theme. In 1953, Abram Games was commissioned to design an on-air image. Nicknamed the Bat's Wings, it consisted of a rounded brass contraption with a tiny spinning globe in its center, with large wing-like protrusions flanked by lightning bolts on either side. For BBC Scotland, the globe in the center was replaced by a lion. The first incarnation of the BBC Blocks logo appeared in 1958. It consisted of square boxes with slanted letters, not unlike the first slanted logo seen in the years. Let's now shift our focus to years and explore the ways in which it shapes our perspective. In the years, the main BBC logo consisted of slanted boxes with italicized bold lettering. This was introduced soon after the introduction of ITV in 1955. This type of logo would go on captions at the end of productions as well as on cameras and other equipment used by the BBC. They became important when popular BBC programmes and clips from the BBC archives were being sold to be aired on other networks and channels. It was in the early years that the Bat's Wings logo ceased to be used. It was superseded by the BBC TV logo within a circle, behind which would appear a map of Britain split into broadcast regions. This set the style for a succession of circular images. On 30 September 1963, the globe logo first appeared. This was a striped line broken in the middle by a globe, with B in block letters below it. When it appeared, the continuity announcer would say this is BBC television. While the globe spun, 1960 foresaw the creation of B and K brands, with the distinctive horizontal stripes across the screen. In April 1964, K was launched. Its logo was similar to that of K, featuring the distinctive horizontal stripe, but with a large 2 in the center with the BBC blocks beneath. As part of the publicity campaign for the new channel, Artist Desmond Marwood created images of a kangaroo named Hullabaloo with a baby named Custard in its pouch to represent the new station. In 1969, when BBC One began broadcasting in colour, it introduced the Mirror Globe logo. This logo shows a rotating blue globe superimposed over a flat globe, as on a map. Below the globes there is a line and the words COLOUR. The word colour was included to remind viewers still watching in black and white to purchase a colour TV set. This logo was used concurrently with the 1971 and 1988 logos until 1992. Get ready to immerse yourself in the world of ERS as we examine its impact and relevance. In 1971, a new softer logo was made, rounding off the boxes and making the spaces between the boxes larger. This logo was used on BBC merchandise, as well as the cadence and the clock. More now than ever, merchandise was being branded with the logo, as more productions were being sold via the American identity, Lionheart Television. Also, records and videos were now starting to be produced, and a corporate identity was getting more and more essential to ensuring that the audience knew it was authentic and that the quality programs they were watching could be attributed to the BBC. The Mirror Globe began using a more ornate font in 1972. From the mid-ERS to the mid-ERS, the channel logo used several different fonts, but with each change the logo remained blue. At this time, BBC logos were mechanical models filmed by black and white cameras. Color was added afterwards, electronically, rendering it simple to change the color as needed. In 1967, introduced a logo featuring a blue 2 with the dot in the curve of the 2 and the word COLOUR underneath. In 1979, debuted the first ever computer-generated logo, the 2 flanked by a double line on the side. The symbols appeared on a black background, then disappeared. This logo remained in use concurrently with the 1963 and 1988 logos until 1992. As we enter this new chapter, let's navigate the complexities of ERS and unravel its multifaceted nature. In May 1988, the BBC produced yet another new logo. Since the last one was made, a consumer brand was becoming part of nearly every TV station and corporation at the time and, at ITV, had been so for many years. The BBC needed a strong and unified identity, and a change of said identity was key. Michael Peters was hired to design this all-inclusive BBC identity for the corporation. They modified the then-current logo by sharpening up the parallelogram edges again and set them to an angle of 17 degrees without reducing the size of the spaces between the boxes. They also sharpened up the text to make it match the clarity of the logo itself. The typeface used was Helvetica Neue. Also, under-logo lines were added to the logo for the first time. These lines were colored blue, red, green to reflect the 3 phosphors of color cathode ray tube television. These appeared on the BBC national region identities from the identity's debut in 1988 and its gradual television debut over the period 1989, 1990 and 1991. Previously, in 1986, the electronically generated logo was updated. The number 2 was replaced with the word TWO. The letters were white, letters on a white background with red stripping on the T as well as green and blue stripping on the W. The word TWO appeared and faded on the white background. The rebrands of both and in February 1991 were also based on the then-current BBC corporate identity, when these 2 channels were given a total corporate look, unlike previous ways of branding the channels. BBC Radio continued to use this logo until the station was closed in August 1998 and the logo continued as an in-credit logo. As we enter this new phase, let's uncover the impact of variants of the 1988 BBC logo on our broader topic. Filed logo pre-Scotland's blue version, used in Scotland. Filed logo pre-Wales red version, used in Wales. Filed logo pre-Northern Ireland's green version, used in Northern Ireland. File curves with flag of the BBC. As we embark on the next leg of our journey, let's unpack the layers of ERS and examine its core elements. In the mid-ERS, when employed to Reverend Martin Lambie-Nen suggested that he look into the current logo choice and see what he could do, given that the BBC at the time was also looking into the BBC brand as a whole. What he noticed was that the BBC had a system that meant that every service or department had a different logo scheme. It had a BBC logo and the name with character. Lambie-Nen decided to address this when he took on the project. As with all these logos, the core brand itself was severely weakened. It was also appropriate to look at the way the BBC was branded, as the BBC was about to take off in digital television and the internet, among other different ventures. After seeing a number of problems with the then current logo, he decided that a new logo was necessary. The logo was technically unsuitable on screen. When shrunk, it lost the lines underneath and the counters, the sections in the and also, when in color on a color photo, it again disappeared or parts vanished. Also, on a TV or computer, diagonals are difficult to work with as the logos pixelate, and anti-aliasing is required to make the logo work. The previous logo also followed the idea of the slanted boxes, and related the BBC back to the very first logo in the ERS and ERS, which was not what the corporation wanted at that time. Technically, the logo never looked comfortable next to the brand and straight letters. Finally, it was expensive to print, as stationery would always have 4-color letterheads, and alongside other BBC brands could mean anything up to 10-color letterheads and stationery. Lambie-Nen's solution is the BBC logo that was introduced on October 1997. By straightening up the boxes and letters, it removed all the problems associated with diagonals and those associated with disappearing lines. This kept the box's shape so that it would still be familiar with what people know about the BBC. The typeface used is Gill Sans, made by Eric Gill. It was chosen because it was elegant and robust and has a timeless appeal. The typeface had been created 60 years before and so avoided the typeface looking outdated at a later date. This typeface also eliminated the disappearing counters issue, as the counters of those were much larger. Some of Gill's statues adorn the exterior of Broadcasting House. The logo was also designed so that anything could be added after the BBC logo, be it department, corporate, brand, TV, radio, and so on. Also, by using this system, everything looked as if it came from the same organization, and it was also easy to add new logos. This system also used only black and white letterheads, meaning a big cost saving to the BBC and the license fee payer. Beginning in 1997 and becoming more common in the ERS, this logo was used as a brand watermark within the first few seconds or minutes of many BBC-made programs, by fading the logo in and out near the bottom of the screen. As of 2023, this practice is rarely used, although a brief animation using the 2022 variant was shown in the beginning of the Eurovision Song Contest 2023 Grand Final. The only visible issue with the system was that the logo for the BBC television and radio brands did not reflect their genre or appeal to the tastes of their target audiences. Lambie-Nen proposed to show this as personality in the idents themselves, and evidence of this can be seen in the idents for BBC One made just after the logo was introduced. The BBC One balloons were made using the new logo, with the personality device in the balloons. The BBC Two idents, thus remained the same but with the new logo added underneath, used with CBBC logo. In this section, we'll be peeling back the layers of variants of the 1997 BBC logo to reveal its true essence. Flag of the BBC 1997 as Flag of the BBC between 1997 and 2021 Flag of the BBC 1997-2001 Orange flag variant of the BBC between 1997 and 2021. As we venture forward, let's examine ERS and ERS in detail and gain a deeper appreciation for its significance. In 2002, the BBC One balloon idents were discontinued, as was the globe. The BBC Two idents that were in use since 1991 had been discontinued shortly before. BBC One's idents were replaced with a new series known as Rhythm and Movement, which were themed around dance and multiculturalism. Meanwhile, BBC Two shifted to new personality-themed idents to reflect its current programming direction, where the Two was now depicted as a three-dimensional, anthropomorphic character. In 2006, BBC One adopted new circle idents, which involved circles being formed by nature or people and their actions. The following year, BBC Two adopted a window on the world theme for its idents, where the Two symbol was now represented as a cutout in various environments. In late 2014, the previous BBC Two idents used from 1991 were revived in honor of the channel's 50th anniversary. In 2017, BBC One adopted a new series of idents known as Oneness, directed by photographer Martin Parr, which featured groups of people in various locations across the UK. In 2018, BBC Two adopted new idents with a curved theme, evoking the shape of a two. Brace yourself for an enlightening exploration of us as we dive into its profound implications. In 2021, the BBC began to phase in the first modification to its corporate logo in 24 years. Whilst still featuring the same basic form of its predecessor, the blocks were given more space between them and slightly smaller lettering, and the typeface was changed from Gill Sans to the current corporate typeface BBC Wreath Sans. The logo was soft-launched by the BBC Select streaming service in North America and BBC Kids channel in Australia. Eventually, the wreath blocks were officially adopted by most of the domestic television services on 20 October 2021, as part of a major corporate rebranding designed to create a more cohesive and consistent identity between the platforms and outlets. The rollout was expected to be completed in 2022 in anticipation of the 100th anniversary. The initial launch included new on-air presentation elements for the television service's acronymed channel, including new wordmark logos also using the font, and use of the blocks as part of new animated transitions framed by the BBC logo and channel name at the top and bottom center of the screen respectively. Specific BBC services, such as Player, News, Sounds, and Sport have new icon logos, formed from arrangements of three rectangles representing the blocks. Most existing idents were retained on the 20 October 2021 launch, although with modifications to suit the new transitions. BBC Three returned to linear television in 2022, with its new idents centered around a trio of personified, animated hands. BBC One launched its Lens idents on 1 April 2022, developed by BBC creative and branding agency Mansmakin. The idents feature scenes of activities in community spaces, with a circular lens effect revealing scenes of other activities taking place at the same location at different times of the day. On 15 March 2023, CBBC and CBeebies introduced new logos and idents incorporating the new branding scheme, with idents featuring abstract scenes involving three snake-like flumes personifying the blocks, and CBeebies updating its traditional bug mascots with a more square-like shape. The new BBC logo designs have not been without controversy, reportedly costing more than £7 26 million of the broadcaster's hyperficate tax revenue, and with many pundits commenting that the new designs are barely distinguishable from their immediate predecessors. Turning our focus to variants of the 2021 BBC logo, let's explore its key elements. File This is our Stealth variant with This is our BBC tagline, Earth logo with This is our tagline. I appreciate your time and I'm grateful for every like, comment, and share.